Well, who didn't see that coming? Obvious, wasn't it? Jets in a blowout win. I'm Glenn Norton with Jet Nation Radio, jetnation.com. Be sure to log into jetnation.com where you can register and become a part of what is the most active Jets message board on the web and talk about a Jets victory for the first time in eternity. My goodness, how long have we been waiting with 5-game losing streak that has really felt like about a 25-game losing streak? And what more can you say about the way this team played today? I mean, it's frustrating because you're watching it and thinking, this is what this team was built for, right? Get a couple of scores, get a lead for the defense to hold on to, and let them go to work. And that's exactly what the Jets did. They go up 14 nothing, their biggest lead of the year, as crazy as that was. And from 14 nothing, they go on to win 30-6. The story of the day, of course, Zach Wilson. Don't get me wrong, the defense was outstanding, but we knew they would have a really good day. Yes, the Texans have a high-powered offense, but without Tank Dell, their number one weapon, and this and let's not take anything away from the Jets defense. I mean, this unit has shut down some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. So it's not as if, they would have been lost if Tank Dell were playing. Houston would have been a little tougher to defend, but it's not as if this team wouldn't have been able to do what they did. Um, so hats off to the defense. They had 4 or 5 sacks on the day. No picks, but it felt like they had about a dozen passes batted. Sauce had some, DJ Reed. We saw the linebacker, CJ Mosley, almost had a pick. Just a really good job all around on defense. Again, you hold a team to 6 points, you did something right. But the story of the day, as I said, Zach Wilson, my goodness. Robert Saleh said after the game, this may have been Zach Wilson's best game as a pro. Um, and, statistically, maybe he had a couple of other games that were better, but this is Zach Wilson on the day throws for 300 yards for the first time since last season, almost a year to the day. Last time he threw for 300 was against the Detroit Lions, December 18th of last year. But on the day, Zach Wilson, 27 out of 36. That's good for 75% completion, 301 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He did have a fumble on a play where he ran the ball, should have slid. But honestly, listen, I don't care, and nobody should care if Zach Wilson turns the ball over if he's also putting points on the board. 2 touchdown drives, a few field goals. Greg the leg banging 50-yarders through in the rain. That guy is ridiculous. Morstead was a monster again as a punter, dropped a few inside the 5. So the Jets didn't capitalize on some early opportunities. I mean, Zach came out hot, 4 for 4, 5 to 5 to start things off, and then we go back to the Hackett, run up the middle, incomplete, run up the middle, run up the middle. But eventually they go back to the air. Zach Wilson completes, I think it was 18 of 21 in the second half. Career high 206 passing yards in the second half, according to ESPN New York's Rich Samini. And Zach was on fire. And to me, the biggest aspect of the offense, the most, I don't know, the biggest development was not just that Zach was playing a bit more freely, which is what we had hoped for. Well, those of us hoping he would play well, I should say, but was the use of the tight ends. We saw Ruckert and Conklin combined for 7 catches for 94 yards, I believe, or 97, over 90 yards. Ruckert and Conklin combined. We've not seen that this year. We saw Zach Wilson make some passes to these guys while they were single covered. Like, not, the coverage was there, but he didn't shy away from it. And Zach Wilson was more aggressive. He trusted his receivers. We saw them make some plays. Garrett Wilson, 108 yards on the day, I believe it was. Look that up right here. Hang on. Taking a peek at the box score. Yeah, 108 for Garrett Wilson, 9 catches for 108. Jeremy Ruckert, 3 for 37. Randall Cobb had 1 for 15. I don't see. Oh, there he is. I don't know why Brees is down the list here. Brees Hall out of the backfield, 8 for 86 with a long of 27 yards. That was the longest pass play of the day. Um, Garrett Wilson had 1 for 25. Conklin had 1 for 24. 2 touchdowns. The 2 touchdown passes were one to Randall Cobb was the first one, the second to Brees Hall. The Cobb one just came on a drag across the middle in the red zone, almost uncovered. Um, let's see. I miss having violent downhill running backs. Frankie D. They do need that. They may go get one. Izzy Abanikanda finally gets some carries, but they wait to do it up by 24 when Houston knows the Jets are just running out the clock, and he's got nowhere to run because they're just going all out against the run. So not much for Abanikanda. Even Brees on the day, 10 for 39, so not a huge day on the ground. But I mean, what do you have last week? He was about 1.7 a carry, so just under 4 a carry today. You take that improvement, every day. And that's the thing is, Zach. was completing these passes early on, and it's setting up the run. It's giving you an opportunity to run the ball. Again, nobody's saying here, no one's sitting here saying they ran the ball for 200 yards or that they were dominant, but they were much better. They were much more efficient on the ground. Again, I'm not sure. I know they for whatever reason they started Dalvin Cook. Robert Saleh said it was to manage Brees because he was a bit nicked up during the week, but that's kind of weird because Brees still had 10 carries and eight receptions. So he still had 18 touches. Where let's see, where's Dalvin Cook? 7 carries for 13, 1.8 per carry. Man. But Robert Saleh told us a couple weeks ago that Dalvin Cook is ready to get rolling. Today he rolled himself to 1.8 yards per carry. But an exciting win that listen, the draft folks are going to be pissed about this. I get it. People who were thinking, "Oh, this we got a shot at the number 2 or 3 pick." And look, the way the offense played, if they'd gone with Tim Boyle or Trevor Siemian the rest of the way, they would have had a shot at the 2nd or 3rd pick. But what happens now is Zach Wilson plays again what Robert Saleh called possibly his best game as a pro. If Zach Wilson, I'm not saying he's going to throw for 300 yards every week and a couple touchdowns every week, but if Zach Wilson plays more aggressive and trusts his receivers more and does some more of the things we saw today over the final weeks of the season, the Jets could steal another couple wins. The Washington is a team that can be, especially Washington. They dealt their 2 best edge rushers, so really teams are going to have a little bit of an easier time moving the ball on them. You've got, of course, New England, and New England would like nothing more, I'm sure, than to let the Jets have that game and hurt their draft position. So you could see the Jets winning a couple more games before things wind down, which means top 10 is even out of the question. You could be picking in the mid-teens, which honestly, if Zach Wilson is going to keep playing this way, and we saw that report earlier in the week saying that the Jets have told Wilson they will trade him this offseason. If that's the case, then I mean that's what you want. Y- Zach Wilson, if he over the final, 3, 4 games of the year, if he throws for 275 plus and a couple touchdowns a few times, now he's no longer a guy you're going to get a day 3 pick for. That's going to increase his value, maybe enough that you can get a couple of picks. And maybe the Jets, I mean, I don't know if the Jets have told Zach Wilson they're going to trade him. Again, this was a report. It wasn't Shefty or Rappaport, but I can't even remember the name. It was a Utah newspaper, but I mean, they're legit in terms of credibility. They've been publications since the 1800s. They've got over 120,000 members, followers, I guess, on X. So this didn't come from a sourced blogger, everyone's favorite. This came from an actual credible source. So if the Jets have agreed to trade Wilson and he balls out over the final month of the season and teams are only willing to part with a day 3 pick, I don't see Joe Douglas doing that. Like Joe Douglas can say, sorry, Zach, but you played well enough to make yourself untradeable in terms of, we're no longer willing to give up, to move on from you in exchange for a 5th or 6th round pick. But look, it's one game. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves. But it was an impressive game. Again, as Robert Saleh said, possibly Zach Wilson's best game as a pro. Highlander Prime, how we doing, man? If Zach Wilson finally figured it out and plays like this more or less the rest of the way, why would the Jets trade it? Well, that's what I mean, Highlander. This is what could put the Jets in a tough spot. I'm referencing the report from a few days ago from a Utah newspaper saying the Jets have agreed with Zach Wilson, yes, we will trade you this offseason. So now do you go back on your word? And what does that do with the relationship? Do you think Zach is going to resign if you keep him around for another year? And you don't trade him and he doesn't start like that's probably Zach Wilson's thought process is okay, we've agreed to a trade. Now, if I ball out for the rest of the season and be more aggressive and stop worrying about mistakes, then maybe I get dealt somewhere where I have a chance to start. If you've made him that promise and then you double back and say, you know what, we're not going to do that after all, that's a situation where if he has value and some leverage, he probably doesn't show up to camp. Agent demands a trade, things like this. So it could get ugly. Again, look, my perfect scenario is that he does play well and he does stay. But if it again, this is all if the report is accurate, then I don't see how you go back and not trade him after telling him you would. That could get ugly, but that's a little ways down the road. I just think that the way he played today was encouraging. I mean, so what we saw from him today, not only the willingness to take more shots and throw into coverage a little bit, and I'm not talking throwing. foolishly into double, triple coverage, but I think we've seen some plays this year where Zach maybe had an opportunity, but again, that with drilling into his head, no mistakes, no mistakes, no mistakes. He's had like a small window, but not willing to take the risk. Well, today he just said, what the hell? You're not going to bench me again. You've promised me you're trading me, and even if they haven't promised they're trading him, like he's not getting benched again. He knows that they've said it. I think this time I think they mean it because enough with the yo-yo and the season's over anyway, so there's nothing. You're not losing anything else. So Zach just says, "All right, I'm going to let it rip," and he does, and he's more aggressive. You see the results, you get the win, and so now he's got a little bit of confidence probably that he didn't have before. Highlander, what do we got? Well, the Jets waffling on a decision making would be consistent if they go back on their word. Again, it they may listen, and I said it. I don't know when you tuned in. If Wilson plays well enough and teams aren't willing to give up what the Jets want, then I think they will go back. Like you know, uh, if that promise was made, we don't know. Did the Jets say we'll trade you? No matter what. I mean, they have to make it clear if we're not getting fair compensation, we're not trading you. And maybe if that was discussed, perhaps we'll see. Maybe the Jets are are planning on being very aggressive in trying to deal Wilson. We'll see what happens with that, but it's going to be an interesting situation if Zach Wilson continues to play well, continues to play at a high level. Again, it's one game, but it was one game where we saw him doing a lot of the things he hadn't been doing earlier in the season, and like I said, the turnover is something you can live with. The defense, you got to give them a lot of credit. Quinnen Williams and Quincy Williams both played well. Quinnen had uh, looked like he had a shot at a safety. Would have been the Jets' fourth of the year, which would have tied the all time record according to the broadcast. But the Texans were called for a hold as Quinnen was coming through the O line with the Texans inside sort of the 1 or 2 yard line. So if he breaks away from that hold and they get that sack, would have been a record setting play. But just a really nice job all around. Tony Adams had a nice play in pass pro. A lot of the officiating crew is terrible, but they're terrible every week. Just kind of get used to it. Um, the offensive line, or sorry, the defensive line, the corners, the safeties. Tony Adams had a nice play, as I said earlier. I think I mentioned that. All around, all fun win. Look, I get it. I had, images of Marvin Harrison Jr. dancing through my head too. But that was only going to happen if they lost out, and that didn't happen. Frankie, what do you got? Frankie says perhaps the most frustrating piece of the situation. Let's pull it up here. Let's pull it up. Perhaps the most frustrating piece of the situation is the kid decides to play his balls off when he has nothing to play for. Pride, however, well, again, Frankie, this is all. It would appear that Zach and this is the thing, it's not just Zach. If you look at Zach, if you look at Boyle, and I get Boyle's not good, but these quarterbacks really seem to be trying to be mistake free almost to a fault. Like, I'm so averse to making a mistake that I'm not going to take any risk at all. And they were both doing it. So is that something the coaching staff was drilling into them? And now they've said, look, season's over. You're moving on. Go ahead and play ball. And I said, when Dylan Terman and Chris Schubert and I spoke about this the other day, I said the only way Zach Wilson, at least in my mind, and again, this is one game. He may never play another good game in his life. We don't know. But I'm just being, just saying that Zach Wilson, when it was announced he was coming back, or I'd said that the only way I think he has a chance to pan out as a pro is if he goes somewhere where the coaches say, "Dude, play your game. Like, we're gonna teach you the offense. You play football the way you play football. We're not gonna try to make you a pocket guy. We want you to run the football. We want you to take some shots. We want you to challenge defenses," which is something he hasn't been doing all year. And really going back to last year, you go back and watch his first couple of games as a pro. And he was more aggressive and more confident then. And of course, I get he was confident. He's coming out of BYU, had that huge year, but he just looked like a different guy as a rookie than he has the last couple of years, where he's looked timid, scared, uncertain. Um, but that a lot of that dissipated today, and he was aggressive, and we saw what we saw. And I wonder if it's something he can maintain. We all wonder that. Is this something we're going to see carry on over the next few weeks? I don't, I don't know what to expect, but all I do know is that Zach Wilson has a ton of talent. He's got an insanely high ceiling, which we've all talked about. What if the lights finally come? Yeah, Mike mentioned it a minute ago. If the light has come on for Zach, I would love to see them keep him around. I just think it'll get a little bit murky if they try to keep him around next year and he's not going to start. I could see him and his agent deciding, you know what, don't go to camp, just hold out till they trade you. Because if he plays well, there might be a team willing to start him, and you're going to ask him to sit on the bench again for another full season, instead of going somewhere in the final year of his deal where he can get a mega contract if he plays well as a starter. So I get what you're saying, Mike, and I don't disagree. I wonder if that's a legitimate possibility if the Jets have told him there will be a deal. I think his game is a testament to how bad Nathaniel Hackett's play calling has been. Thank you, Justin. It's Hackett's terrible. He is. I know Zach said he called a great game. If they don't score a touchdown, you know, Nate called a great game. Um, he doesn't. I tweeted out, it was the offense was rolling. Zach was 5 for 5 on the first drive, and then they go back to run up the middle run. And the broadcast even said it. I think it was Trent Green. He mentioned. He said, "Oh, the Jets seem to be trying to run the ball on first and second down to get into third and manageable." I thought, yeah, that seems to be what they've been doing for the last decade, Trent, and especially this year under Hackett. But this particular Sunday, Zach Wilson did a little bit more, well, did a lot more than he has in previous weeks. Listen, it's fun to watch football games that your favorite team wins. Draft position, as I said, I get it exactly, Justin, like father, like son. I was so nervous when they hired him, and terrible, terrible. Texans run the same scheme, of course, with the familiarity with Saleh. Could be the case, but it's still, it still comes down to execution. We've seen situations this year where the opportunity is there to make plays and Zach hasn't made them. He did today. And like I said, it's one game. I don't want to go overboard, but it was again, as I said to the guys, if Zach is allowed to just go out, play freely, play carefree, and tell him, hey, man, if you make some mistakes today, it's okay. If you throw a pick or two, fine. Just if you happen to get us in the end zone a few times while turning it over a little bit, we can live with that because we need points. And that's what happened today. Zach Wilson was more aggressive, scored points, 30 of them, in fact. Again, the defense was phenomenal and put them in good field position all day. The Jets could have done damage early on, but the offense sputtered. Again, a lot of first down, second down, run up the middle stuff. Highlander, good points. If Zach's the guy by season's end, sitting behind AR's plan is over. Exactly. And that's the thing. That's sort of the downside of, especially, it's the fact that you're out of the playoffs. I don't know if they're mathematically out yet, but they're going to be mathematically out soon. Um, you're out of the playoffs, and then the kid plays well enough to justify earning consideration as a starter. And the Jets have already told him they trade him, and why would he sit on the bench with that being the case? So, like I said, it could get ugly. If he plays like that, we'll win out. That'd be 9-8 to an improvement. Yeah, listen, I I don't wanna get too ahead of myself, but put it this way, uh, today aside, that's been the case all year, right, Jonathan? I mean, we've all said if this team could just put up a couple touchdowns every week, you got a shot. Geez, you score 30 every week. I mean, this defense, I know that the numbers haven't looked as good in terms of points allowed in recent weeks, but that's defense giving up late garbage time TDs when they know the offense isn't going to score a damn touchdown. You give this defense something to play for and say, hey, fellas, we're going to put up 21 today. We're going to put up 24 today. The defense, they're going to smell blood and probably play at a much higher level, much like they did today. So yeah, if he plays like he did this week, I mean that would be nuts for this team to win out and go 9-8. But I'm not there yet. I'm not quite there. Plan was to always have him sit for 2 years, anyways. I was hope Zach would understand that. Even if that was the plan, Mike, the bottom line is he didn't. And if he plays well down the stretch, then that changes everything. If he sits for 2 years and that's the plan, then there's really nowhere for Zach to go. Zach can't say, "Oh well, I want to be traded now because this, that, the other." Because that was the plan. But if the plan is, well, we're going to sit you, and then they don't sit him, and then he plays poorly, but then the light comes on and he plays well down the stretch. Well, now it's like, hang on a minute. Now, why would I agree to sit? I've now done enough that teams want me, and teams want to at least give me a shot to start. Whereas with the Jets, he knows he's not starting. How typical would it be of the Jets to? I don't even want to think about the possibility. You deal Zach, the light comes on, he plays at a high level and Aaron Rodgers retires after a year or two. They win a Super Bowl, I won't care. But that would be a very Jetsy thing for that to happen. So yeah, so that'll wrap this one up, folks. Not a lot more to cover. Very happy for the Jets. Very happy for Zach Wilson. I think my favorite part of the game may have been seeing all the different players coming up to Zach to congratulate him. Paul Hackett was conservative. I would say they were both incompetent. Paul just they were very similar. They hated throwing the ball beyond 10 yards. 10, 15, 15 plus yards was a bomb to them. Paul was the same way. Lots of rollouts and dump offs and third and long draw plays. That was Paul Hackett's mantra. That was his thing. Third and 19 draw plays, where it's like he lived for that. At least it wasn't boring exactly, Frankie. I mean, how much it's just I said the other day, like, I want the draft position. Of course I do. But on game day, I can't watch a Jets game and root for them to lose. I just I can before the game and after the game, I can focus more on draft position and be like, fine, they lost. I don't care. But I have a really hard time. Now, listen, if it's a game where the number 1 or 2 pick is on the line and if you lose today, you've got that pick, I'm probably gonna be like, oh, come on. Let's play well and lose, right? That's probably what I'd be wanting. But 5 games left in the season, and I kind of felt like if Zach did come back and play the way we were told that he was gonna be more carefree and less he wasn't gonna be as worried about mistakes, I thought, you know what? They're probably gonna steal a win or 2, somewhere along the way, if for no other reason to screw up the draft position, right? But, that one today was a win that nobody expected. Zach's audition for whoever or he's auditioning for whoever he gets traded to went pretty well. It did, and I it it's all part of the situation. If he is in fact getting traded, and they did in fact tell him, "Go ahead and play ball and don't worry about mistakes," he probably did feel like, "All right, I need to do something here to prove not just to the Jets, but to the NFL that I can play in this league." And, one start, folks. It's one start, but it was a good one. As I said, Robert Saleh called it his best as a pro. I enjoyed watching it. It was fun watching a Jets win. It was fun watching a laugher. It was fun watching one where early fourth quarter, you're kinda like, this game's over." And it kind of at 14-0, the way the Jets were playing defense, you felt like this one was over. The Texans get the touchdown, you start to wonder, a turnover and everything could change here. But it was fun to watch the Jets win a football game. It was fun to watch the quarterback. And look, Zach Wilson was making throws on the move, making throws off his back foot, making throws that, he had the rollout to his left where he spin and threw the ball in the middle of the field to Garrett Wilson, easily his best throw of the day. He did some really impressive things. And if he keeps that up, he's going to increase his trade value, and the Jets are going to have some decisions to make. But as it goes, Jets win it 30-6. Zach Wilson balls out. Thanks so much to everyone for tuning in. Check us out Wednesday night. Myself, Dylan Terman, Chris Schubert. We will have more on this and any breaking stuff that comes up between now and then. Have a good one, Jets fans.